So how are you, my student? My name is Dr. Mary Mugwechui. I'll be your facilitator in this course. This is MEM 5230 School Management. This is the course aligned for our students who are taking Masters in Education. And that's why you can see that we have School of Education, Department of Educational Management and Curriculum Studies. We have our course outline for this. And our course outline, it's important for us to know. Sometimes we find the students, they come in and you ask them, how far have you been able to cover this work? And sometimes it is interesting to say, the students say, oh, I've just been reading anything connected to it. The reason why we have the course outline, we need to know how wide we can go, how deeper we can go, and what is it that we need to understand. I may not go through the preliminaries of how many hours are required, and even maybe I may not go through the delivery methods, but most importantly is that we need to understand what is the purpose of this unit, and it is to provide the learner, who is my good student there, with the knowledge and skills for analyzing and managing learning institutions. And you understand, when we talk about the skill, the knowledge, we are required to know, have all this knowledge, that is the cognitive knowledge. Then we need to have the skills, that is the psychomotor. And I appreciate that most of us are practicing and actually at this level of the management. And therefore, when we talk about that, we need us to equip ourselves with the knowledge, with the values, with the attitudes, the right attitudes and the skills in analyzing and managing the learning institution. Then I think this is a powerful course. It's good that we understand how we assess our students, because most of the time we get the students ask, I got this in the cut marks, how hard am I supposed to work? But anyway, we are supposed to work hard all the time. But anyway, the cut carries for our master students, the cut is 40, and then the main exam is 60. Expected learning outcomes. We are teachers and we understand that you cannot just teach blindly. Your students should be able to know what are they expecting, and we are saying at the end of the day, there is the word to prepare effective and efficient school managers. That we are hoping that all these crises that we hear in our schools, especially at the managerial position, with this course we are going to open up our minds. We are going to learn a lot, and then we can be able to at least to manage our schools well. To train administrators on the intricacies of school management, I've just said that, to appreciate the importance of making informed decisions. And we can actually associate ourselves with this making informed decisions, because we have seen, even when we are still going on with the exams that have just ended, we have seen chaotic issues where, even the examination management was an issue. And that is why we were talking about here, that we need to understand, how do we make this informed decision? If you have a policy, if you have something that has come up in a school, how do you get in and do informed decisions? To understand management of conflict resolutions. Honestly, we have to agree that in our schools, my friend, we deal with people, different categories, especially our students also, who have their very individual needs that needs to be addressed. We also have the staff. They also have their own needs, and they have their own conflicts that need to be resolved. You remember, like a time that where the students were simply banning schools, and it was almost coming back. So if you don't have this knowledge on how to address these individual issues, and also maybe what your students and the staffs are going through, then your school will always be in the news that again they have gone on strike. The course content will be looking at the context of management, schools as an industry, financial management. Although in the financial management I may not touch a lot, it could just be a kind of a highlight, because I know you have a course, a whole course, a whole unit on the same. So we'll just be highlighting. And because this course will be for everybody, the unit will be for everybody, then at that point we'll go deeper. Then discipline, supervision and evaluation. Definitely we have to talk about the discipline, because you can't manage a school that is totally disciplined. We'll also talk about a bit about the theories of motivation, and I know, of course, there are a few of those that you did. The good things with the masters, I am not ever afraid, because you master what you have gone through. With the undergraduates, you are learning new things, new concepts, new definitions. But when you come back for masters, then these are things that you have heard before, and maybe the only things is that we are mastering them. We are mastering them. And most of, as I have said, most of the students that we normally have is that they have, you know, they are practicing. So it's just about to analyze what is it that goes on in our school and how can we make it better. So and that makes my work easier, that we don't have to go to the, you know, to the definitions of issues. Then job satisfaction and expectation, we'll be looking at that, relations and interactions and co-curricular activities. Okay, we quickly get to chapter 1, where we are talking about the context of management, and we, of course, there are objectives of every chapter, and we are interested to look at the concept of management, various functions of management, and theories of management. Of course, as I have said, with introductions and definitions, we don't really have to go deep in this, because I believe that you have always known, and this may be to remind ourselves that when we talk about management, we are talking about to manage is to focus, is to plan. You are planning, you are organizing, you are also commanding, you are also coordinating, and you are also controlling. This is about Henry Fayo. We'll be looking at each one of these, especially when we talk about to focus. What do we mean? When we talk about you are organizing, we are commanding, we'll go deeper into this. Of course, do I need to define the school, what school is? Of course, we know it's a social organization, and of course it always have a chief objective. You know, it has a chief objective. For example, in Kenya we have the goals of education. I believe you can remember there are 8, and you can talk about them freely now that you're in the management level. So those are some of the things that we'll be talking, and maybe if I could also go to the aspect of school management, it's good to understand that we have 2 levels. We have the internal management. This is when you're dealing with the things that are within your school. Talk about admissions, talk about management of building, talk about you know, relations with colleagues and so forth. But again, when we think about a school, we know that a school is not a closed system, it's an open system, and therefore there are other external, external tasks or functions that we need to deal with, and also the relations. And here we are talking about the community. We are talking about any stakeholder who has an interest in what is going on in the school, whether primary or secondary. Characteristics of school management. It is important to understand it's multidisciplinary. That is, when we talk about multidisciplinary here, disciplinary, please, is not about good behavior here. We are talking about the areas of study, that we draw knowledge and concepts from different areas of study. You'll find that, for example, here we are talking about the School of Education, but again we have a whole School of Business where they talk about this management, and we borrow a lot from them. It's applied branch, that one you understand, flexibility of it, that we don't have very rigid principles and rules and regulations. They keep on changing according to how maybe the policies are, or maybe according to how, for example, now we have the pandemic. We have this pandemic, and you can see how we have changed, even the dates of opening school, the dates of examinations, many things, including even how we space in our schools. Many things have changed. Practicability of it, we don't talk about things that are up there. We don't talk about things that are we talk about things that are practical, things that can be seen, things can be actualized. That's what we are talking about. It also deals with human beings. That is also important to know. It should conform with the social and political philosophy of the country. It's objective based, just like the way I've said. It's both science and an art, and when I talk about the art, it's all that we do. Then science, you can tell that we do a lot of, even when we think about the laws, we think about the policies, we do a lot of research, and therefore it's also a science. A semi-profession, meaning that it does not stand by its own. When we talk about education, we don't have where we just teach school management, but it is actually infused in other subjects. Then it's relative, meaning that how I carry it in my school, it's not necessarily how you do it in your school. Let's look at the scope of school management. And when we talk about the scope, we'll be looking at the planning. What do you plan for? And as we have said, a plan is a blueprint. You don't want your students just to come to school and then they find that you have not made any plan. You have to know where will they be sleeping, how many students do you need, what will they be eating, where will they be sleeping, if it's the teachers, if it's about the teaching curriculum and instruction. who will be teaching what, you know, those are the things that you need to think about. At what particular time will this be done? You think about the timetables. If it's about community, when will we be calling them for meetings? To what extent can they be going? And this is what we are talking about. Then, of course, budgeting, that you have to think about the budget. You have your vote heads, and we are asking ourselves, you need to come up with a budget. Where are you, you know, in those vote heads, what estimations are you going to give them? How much are you going to use? And then where are you going to get this money from? Who is going to be involved? How are you going to report about all this? How are you going to evaluate as well? Organizing, very important for us, that although we have all this in schools, there's so much to be done in our schools, but then again we have to think about, okay, how do we divide them into parts so that they can be well organized, you know, so that they can be well carried on. For example, think about what we have. We have all these subjects and we have to be organized, and that's why you find in our schools that, again, although we have all the subjects in our syllabuses, then we have to divide, you know, we have to create the departments. If it's about the running of the schools, we have the management level, we have, you know, all those small bits that we get ourselves into so that we can be able to manage well. Directing, you have to give the direction on where we are going. You know, the same thing as controlling, also we have to be careful. Then coordinating, you know, we have to make sure that everybody, all these parts that are working, you know, in their own, whether it is humanities, whether we are talking about humanities, whether we are talking about maybe even the learners, wherever they are, whether we are talking about the management, we are saying again, we have to come up together, we have to come back together, we have to come up together, so that at the end of the day, all those different subs are working for a common goal. We don't want a situation, for example, where they, you know, I come so early, I need to do my presentation, then I find that the students have been taken out for games. Then it means that something is not working together. Decision making, involving people in decision making. Of course, we know there are different ways in how you can involve people. There are other times you don't even have to involve them. This depending on what you are going to do, or what you know, the issue at stake. But most importantly, what we always say is that let people know what you are doing. Involve people in decision making. And once you involve people in decision making, then what happens is that they own the process, and that one makes it easier for you. Evaluation, we know what is not measured actually is not done. What's not measured, and sometimes I always say, do not always think, you know, it's good to know what are you actually measuring, what are you evaluating, so that you can get its impact, you can get its relevance, you can get its efficiency, you can talk about, you know, sustainability. Because you find in schools, in most times, we come up even with the projects that we come up with. But again, even the teaching methods that we have, sometimes, many things that we have in our schools, but if there is no evaluation done, do you know, sometimes we could be rewarding failure, thinking that we are doing much. Do you know, sometimes we do that because we understand sometimes we can look like we are doing something, but it's because somebody has not sat down to go through the evaluation and see, does it who is benefiting from this, what is the impact we are getting, what is the relevance of what we are doing, okay, is it sustainable. Then we also have activities in the programs, and this one we know about. So I don't have to go through this because we have already talked about it, and maybe now what I can talk about is the management theories. And I know my students, because this is not new to us. I think the first time I went for my interview after after PhD, I wanted to be employed somewhere, and I was asked, who is the father of management? Who is the father of management? And in fact, they asked who are the fathers, because we are going to discuss the fathers. So I always tell my student, if you talk about that you know how to manage schools and you cannot even remember who are the fathers, then there are many issues. One can easily doubt about your qualifications. So without taking a lot of time, we go through these many theories of management. Sometimes the students always ask is that how come that we are talking about different management theories, and the issue here is that, we deal with people, we don't deal with machines. And therefore, there is no single one theory that actually can address the diversities that we normally have in schools, when you're dealing with people. And that's why we say, when you depend on only one theory, then what is happening is that you're becoming a slave to the same. We have the first person, the first theory, scientific management theory, and this one actually looked people as machines, okay? Looked people as machines, and they believe that if you just make people to work, they can work just like the machines, like the machines that we are having here, without a break, without anything. It's just about the tasks, and they work and work. And therefore, we have some of these fathers who came up with these theories. We have Taylor. And Taylor proposed a few things. Large daily tasks, that these people should be given large daily tasks. And do we find it in schools? Yes. That at the end of the day, you find that you have been given the work that you're supposed to do from morning to evening. Whether you are sick, whether you are whatever it is, this is your work, this is what you're supposed to do. Then standard condition, we are saying that let there be what, you be provided by what you want to use. For example, if it's a sweeper, not let the sweeper just go looking for a broom for the whole day, because as they look for this broom the whole day, then they will waste a lot of time. Also, if it's a teacher, honestly, provide the teacher with what they need, then they'll do what needs to be done. High pay for success. Once you have done your work well, be paid for it. Be paid for it. Yeah, and this is what we also see in our schools, that the promotion is about how well you have been able to do your work. Then loss in case of failure. Definitely, if you don't meet your targets, and these days I know there are appraisals, if you're not able to meet, if you cannot hit the target, then what happens? Sometimes you even find that your salary is taken away when you miss school for some time without explanation. Expertise in large organization, of course, we find that we get ourselves into our areas, and there's expertise. Like now you can see what I'm teaching. This is my area of where I have specialized in. There is somebody else who is specialized in something else, and this is what we are talking about. Then the next person is Henry Fayo. Fayo came also with, on how he looked at management. And he talked about division of work, and of course we have division of work. Like here I am dealing with the School of Journalism. They have been given that work. I am from the School of Education. There are others from the School of Medicine, and the work is divided. And also, even within the schools, we also have the work divided. Who is going to teach what? Who is going to do what work? Okay, so and with this one, actually what happens is that you are able to specialize more in the work that you have been given, and therefore the delivery is good. Authority, there's authority, the person who gives the order. There's discipline there, how you are supposed to respect each other. Then unity of command, that the command should come from one person, not from everybody. Sometimes there's that confusion, you don't even know, and that's the right time you hear people asking, Sasa, whom will I obey if everybody is just throwing orders everywhere? So there should be unity of command, unity of direction. We should know where are we going, all of us, where are we going? Okay, so that we don't have people pulling on different sides. All of us should pull on the same side, so we should have the same objective. Submission of individual interest. Do not remember, I have said with this scientific, they were more concentrated on looking at people as, it was about productivity that you get from a person, and therefore, that's why Taylor is talking about the subordination of individual interest for the general interest. You should not always bring yourself before before the interest of the company or before the interest of a school. And this one we always see that sometimes there are these ones who keep on asking for permission over and over and over and over and over again, and then you find that maybe your students are left unattended. Remuneration, of course, we understand. You should be paid, as I have said. Scala chain, that there should be command, a line of command, as just like what Taylor had said. There is order, there should be order. Equity, the way you treat people, there should be equity. Stability, this is very important. Stability of tenure and of the personnel. When you make your your staff gets to know that actually they are stable, they are stable, they stand for settling. They are not always in a worry that tomorrow they will not find themselves working. Then of course you find that they'll be able to work. Initiative, allow your workers, including even our students, to come up with ideas that can be helpful. Esprit de corps, this is about teamwork. Then again, there were Ruther Gurik and others who came up, actually they just improved on what we have talked about, the two, and they came up with planning, organizing these things is possible. We can be able to read because it's more of what I have just discussed. Then we go to another person here. He was about, this is Wemba, Max Wemba, about bureaucracy. And of course, anytime we talk about bureaucracy, we understand what we are talking about. And he just wanted, why do we obey those who are on authority? And he came up with issues about the hierarchy, arrangements of offices, whereby one level of job is subject to the control of the next one. And he also talked about, he also came up with a few things. Number one, again, like the other, it's division of labor. But this guy, he believed in red tape. Red tape is about strict rules and regulations, that you had to obey the strict rules and regulations. Do we still apply his theory even now? Yes. The TSC has the, we have the TSC Code of Regulation, Code of Ethics, and even in our very schools, we also have rules and regulations that actually bind us to what we need to do. Impersonality and interpersonal relations, do not favor anybody. And also the final one is that we should be appointing people according to their expertise. Just because you come from maybe coastal region where they speak in Kiswahili, you should not be asked to teach Kiswahili, but you should be able to teach what you are trained in. Then after that, after the school management, you have seen that we have those scientific theories. They concentrated more on the productivity, not paying attention to the human side of being. It was not very humane, and therefore other theories came in, and one of these theories is human relation movement by Mary Parker Follett. I like that she's Mary like me, because I also mind about how people feel about things. And they came up and she was an academician. The others, they were working in the industries at the technical level, like Taylor, and Fayo was also working on the management level. And this person came in and was like, okay, fine, the thing is this, we cannot just pay attention to the to what is happening in the industries. We cannot just look at people like machines. They also have their own needs. They also have their own needs that needs to be taken care of. And this is a good way of looking at it, because you realize, if I am sick, then you're asking me to go to class, or if my kid is sick and then you're asking me to go to class, definitely there is no delivery I'm going to do. But what we ask here is that let there be a balance, so that we don't also find that that we are aligned or we are inclined on one side. So there should be a balance on the people's needs, and also on the company's tasks. Then the next thing is behavioral science movement. And behavioral science movement, the only thing that here they talked about, that workers' motivation, get their motivation either by the work itself. And this is important. And I think as managers, my good friends, my good students, is that you have to understand that just like the way we have talked about, if you do not let these people do what they are good at, then of course they will not be motivated by the work itself. But if they are just doing what they are good at and what they have the interest in, then the work becomes as good as play. And there's no problem about that. Then, of course, the other thing is the nature of the incentive systems. Depending on how well you are paying them, then they can actually feel that they want to work or not. They can be motivated or not. Interpersonal relations. This is great. By the way, be careful on how your teachers and everybody else relate, including these students, because people want to live. Everybody is in pursuit of peace. So once they find that they are not able to live together, then that is the time you find that people can even get depressed, because we are social beings. Your management style as a manager, we don't want you to carry out autocratic all the time, but sometimes you can. Laissez-faire as well. Sometimes people just like you to, people get tired of people who are not taking control. But again, we are not saying that you take control all the time, because if you have a staff that are well directed, then it can be easier. Workers need, also the work environment. and values also. This one also dictates the same. There are some questions for you here. My students, as we always say, questions must be done because they help you to see how well you have been able to learn. Let's look at school as an industry. You see what we are talking about when we think about management, that is a multidisciplinary. Now again, we are looking at it as an industry. So again, where have we moved into? You can tell we are getting this information from all over. And of course, school is an industry. This is just an explanation of what I would say. When we think about the school as an industry, we are saying we have the input, we have the process, sometimes we call them transformation, and finally we have the output. So we have our input, it could be the societal values, it could be their expectation, it could be our students, it could be all the resources that we need. Then they go through the transformation, that is the teaching and learning, and then at the end of the day we have the output. Therefore, when we look at school, let's not look at the school and just like the industry, input, processing, and then the output. The question is this, and actually if anything goes wrong with any of those areas, of any of those steps, then you find that the output will not be as marketable as we would like it to be. School as an organization, of course, we understand is an organization because when we talk about an organization, it refers to a group of individuals in a given place whose efforts are coordinated. You know, you are coordinated for a purpose of imparting knowledge and values and skills so that our students can be able to be social fits. And actually, when we think about school as an organization, it is because it fits as that. It has its goals, of course. When we look at organization has goals. In schools we have goals, we have technology, we have all these things that we have the division of labor, as we talked about earlier. We have the authority, we have the environment, because the school does not operate in a vacuum. It operates on an environment that we said it's divided both internally and external. Let's look at school as an open system. When we think about an open system, we are saying that we affect what is happening outside, and we are also affected by what is happening inside. I always say this, and this is what I always feel, that if you have been in a school for around a school has been in existence in a community for around maybe 10 years. Then I always say the school is the community and the community is the school. They have influenced each other so much that what happens in the community is also happening in the school. I was telling somebody the other day that you'll always find, if you go to places where we find that maybe they always, they allow me to say that maybe the turban, you find that maybe you go a school is in a place where they do the turban, then you'll find even almost all the students plus the teachers, they are doing the same. That's just a simple example that I'm just giving. So to understand that actually whatever happens outside there influences what happens in the school, and what happens in the school also influences what happens out there. But again, I also say to an extent the school can also be looked at as closed system, where you think about, for example, and that is what makes the schools unique. When do you have your lunch? What kind of uniforms do you wear? There are a few things that you can do that are a bit closed, but actually school is an open system, always affected by what is happening out there. Then, of course, with that, again, there are a few questions that you have to look into, but I believe that you understand what we mean by a school as an open system, and it is all, and we have simply said it influences what happens out there, and it is also influenced by what happens in the school, and therefore we have to be careful. And what I think about this, what I always say is that do not sometimes just punish the student. Just try, if you are a true teacher, is that understand where the students are coming from, understand from where they are coming from, and if there is falsehood in them, if there is some falsehood they could have collected from wherever they came from, then remove the falsehood before imparting the truth. But again, it's also why are we also interested to, when we understand the school as a system, why we are also interested is that we have to understand that even some of the concepts have to be interpreted in the way that these kids understand them out there. Okay. Then financial management, as I said, this one we are not going to take time in it, because of course you will be having a whole unit on where you'll be learning this. But again, you understand, I have had this joke that sometimes you find the principal has been there and he's being accused of eating all the money, has been accused of eating the money and everything else. But again, you find that he has not even eaten anything, as they say, eating. The only person who has been there and eating everybody the money is this other person who sits next to him. I remember a case of where one of, you remember there was a case of even mismanagement in school, even where so many head teachers resigned because they could be asked to account for the money, but unfortunately they could not tell even where this money went to. For them, it's that they just went there to the bank for bank reconciliation, and actually there was nothing. So this is why we encourage our principals, please, and our managers, have some know-how. We are not asking you to be accountants. We are not asking you to get there. But what we are simply asking you, just get to know what is happening, so that you also don't get yourself into problems. And therefore, some of the things that, of course, you need is that you have to understand that you have to do the budgeting. I am not going to the details of the budgeting, but anyway, we understand when we define a budget is as annual projected estimates of the income and expenditure in respect to a given organization. You need to come up with a budget. Get to know how do you do this budget. How do we include all the vote heads? How do we do the estimations? Okay, how do we do the estimation? And actually, when you're also coming up with a budget, get to know also those processes of coming up with a budget. Include everybody, include those who the stakeholders in what you are doing, so that they can get to know. And this is why we are saying, I know you have the vote heads, like those ones of tuition, and of course for the tuition we expect you that we should have our HODs there, of course the deputies there, concentrating on these areas a lot. Then of course operational account, we have, in short, we are saying include everybody when you are coming up with a budget. We have the types of budget, project budgets, and of course this is about the projects you are carrying out, and the period budgets of the things that are still going on, and they could be monthly, quarterly, and that is important for you to know. Of course, I don't want to go through why we should have a school budget, but of course we understand, if you look at it on one way without myself reading all this, because I know you'll be able to read, when you have a plan on where you are going to get your money and how you are going to spend it, then of course you don't run yourself into problems. But again, when you don't have, we always say when you don't plan, then you are planning to fail. So it is so important for you to always remember that, kindly come up with a budget and think through, where are you going to get this money? Otherwise, sometimes we go to schools and you hear the ambitions of the head teacher, and then you look at it and you are just wondering, where are we going? Where are we going to get this money? You are talking about buying a bus. It's good to dream. It's important that we dream. But then also we are asking ourselves, as we dream, then is it not good to align what we want to do with maybe where we expect to get the money? We are not going to go through the components of the budget. But again, it is important budget to make sure that there is budget management and control, so that, as I have said, you don't want to get yourself into a lot of problems. Another document that you need is commitment register and other budgetary controls. And we are talking about, when we talk about the commitment registers, we are saying that this is a document that enables the head teacher of a school to ascertain the amount available for a particular vote head. That is what it is. So for example, for all those vote heads that we have just talked about, it is important, and we are saying it contains total amount approved in the budget, payments made and the balances at a given period of time. We also have others that maybe this one you may want to look into later. As I have said, don't worry so much about this financial management, but because actually this is something that you'll be able to go through. But again, something that I thought I should talk about more on this is about it's about the cash and bank reconciliation. Cash and bank reconciliation, and I know I have just skipped a few, which I expect that maybe you'll be able to look into and maybe just read and understand, because they are just straightforward things. It is important, my head teachers and my managers, please take time and do the reconciliation, cash and the bank reconciliation. Do not always trust somebody to do these things for you. Get time. Get time. You have even heard that some of the managers have committed suicide because they cannot understand what is going on. So it is my plea that kindly get to know what is happening in that office. And the advice that I normally give, and I am happy because most of the students that I'm teaching who have been there before you, they have agreed that it is possible to have an internal kind of a monitoring team. There are those teachers that you can you can trust, and they have the know-how. Don't shy to ask them for help so that you can be able to understand what is happening in that next office. I know they are not these people, they normally sit in the next office. It is important that next office to you, it's important that you get to know what is happening. Discipline, supervision, and evaluation. This is an area that we have gone through, and we know it is an area that touches on us a lot, and especially when it comes to discipline, whether it is the discipline of the teachers, whether it is the discipline of the students, whether it is the discipline of maybe non-teaching staff. And it is so important for us to understand that where there is no discipline, nothing much is going on. And therefore, we need to understand that we need to take care of ourselves, and we need to make sure that there is discipline. And therefore, even as we go on, we are almost going for a break. When we think about discipline, you know that there is the way, there are the standards of how we want people to behave. There are standards of how we want to behave. But it has always been known that people don't like always following orders. And therefore, when they don't like following orders, then it is upon you to see how do you ensure that actually they conform. Because once they don't conform, then what it means is that you're not going to achieve your objectives. Imagine this teacher who is supposed to come to class, but always comes to class late. Imagine this teacher who is supposed to be marking students' book, but it's never done. Imagine this teacher who is not even completing the syllabus because he has so many other things that he's doing. With no discipline, I can assure you, you can't go far. And therefore, we have different types of discipline. We have what it calls preventive discipline. And when we talk about preventive discipline, this is the discipline I like most, honestly. And this is what I keep on talking about. Why do you punish somebody and maybe you never even tell them what it's expected of them? Because I always say, before you get so mad with me or any other person, they need to understand how are things being run here, so that they don't end up into problems of maybe which are not of their own making. And therefore, when we talk about the principle in preventive discipline, is to instill self-discipline among the organizational participants. And it is possible. It is possible to create this when people know that they are valued, when people are involved in decision making, when people are involved in what is going on, when people are made to understand where they are going and they feel part, they own, then easily preventive discipline comes into place. But then there's also the corrective discipline. There are those ones, however much you try, to instill the self-discipline, they'll never be disciplined. And therefore, this is where you come in, and of course, you come up with this corrective discipline that is aimed to discourage further infringement of the rule. And therefore, of course, we have rules and regulations, because we have the rules of regulations, and they give the actions on which should be taken, especially when people break rules. So this is what you need to do. For the teachers, of course, it's easier. We have the TSC, which has come up with very good rules, and that's what you need to know. If a teacher just decides not to come to school for 14 days, of course, you know what happens. Of course, there are so many canon knowledge and so forth. For the students, you have agreed and you have come up with the school rules together. But what I always say kindly, once these kids come to school, when these students report to school, please go through with them through the rules. Go through the rules so that once they break the rules, then they know this is what is likely to happen to them. But as I have always said, and I have said even today for this, that I prefer when you practice the preventive rules, you don't get yourself into a lot of problems. Progressive discipline. Of course, we are saying that discipline, you don't have to, you know, it has steps. For example, you know, we have what we call, you know, they are the steps when you have to address the issue of discipline. And we are saying that you should have the oral warning, tell this person the way you are doing things is not good, written warning, write to them, then there's suspension. And finally, if there's issues, let the person be dismissed so that you can also have time to go through. We have views of disciplines, and I am going to talk about one quickly as we end. And this is one by Douglas McGregor, Theory X and Theory Y. And with Theory X, I am always happy when I see it's about X. I think they were supposed just to close it. And it is that it views people that they are lazy. Honestly, people are lazy. Let me honestly say that. People are lazy. If you leave people are lazy. You can see during the COVID when it was said, guys were told that you are going to sleep. It was, guys were happy a bit. But of course now they again, it's not any fun. That they dislike work and avoid it. They will do anything to avoid work. They can even feign, that they are very sick so that they don't do anything. Then we are also saying since they dislike work, they must be coerced. You know, you have to coerce them a bit. You have to force them a bit. That they will avoid responsibilities and they won't be led. You see, and you find that employers are also self-centered. Have you ever even gone for a meeting and you hear somebody asked who is going to lead the team, and everybody said, no, not me, not me, not me. That's the one of the Theory X. But again, this guy says, no, let's not also look people at as, you know, negatively. He came with Y, Theory Y, I think for S also. And in this one, he talked about that people are not inherently lazy. And it is true. You stay at home for some time, you feel good about it, then you start missing to go to work. And you have seen this even when the teachers go on strike. The government knows after some time these guys will get so bored at home, and then, you know, somehow. Then, view work as being as natural as rest or play. Honestly, especially when you are doing what you like, you just feel like, oh, I want to go to work. I just want to go and do presentations. I just want to go and meet my students. You know, it's therapeutic. Then, views will exercise self-direction and self-control if they are committed to the objectives. And how do they become committed to the objectives? If they understand what is being done. Then, can on average learn to accept and even seek responsibilities. Sometimes you just ask, who is going to lead this time? If they believe in what you are telling them, then very easily you find that they go in. Then we look at, I don't want to go through this, the principles of setting good discipline action, but one thing I should say, and borrowing from Mark Gregor's, is that you should look at, you know, these principles as hot stove rule. Hot stove rule. If actually you touch a stove that is it's hot, you quickly remove your hand from it. But again, this stove will keep on burning you many times, and the same way as many times as you keep on throwing your finger into it. And that's what it should be. That actually when somebody has committed you know, a fault, you know, is in the wrong, kindly, quickly deal with the problem that is there. Also, be impartial. These rules apply to everybody, not to Mary today and tomorrow they are not applying to anybody else. Because the stuff will burn me the same way, will burn everybody the same way. And also, we are saying it should have an objective. What do you want to have at the end of the day? Then we are saying that it should also allow lights to appeal. Of course, this one I can just mention, and I know we know it, disciplinary process. Preliminary investigations must be done. There should be temporary suspension so that you get time to know what could have been happening. All a warning, as we have talked about. Then if it doesn't work, do the demotion and maybe remove the person. These ones we may not have to talk about them because I have already talked about them. Then we go to the last slide and have already talked about to indiscipline, but maybe the only thing that I may just want to talk about is the factors that lead to indiscipline. Number one, because this is what we are having. Number one, poor management or insensitive and thoughtless words and deeds from the school administrators. Can you remember those days when we were in school and sometimes the management could just say anything, and at the end of the day you don't know what you are causing these kids to do. Defective communication, that is also something. Whatever was said there, it is not well communicated downwards, and that is why as a manager you should know what were they told, so confirm. Then of course heads, teachers, and response to their grievances. You don't want to listen to these kids, they have issues. You don't want to listen to non-staff, to non-teaching staff. You don't want to listen to the teaching staff. You just don't want. You close yourself in that big office. Then by the time you get out of the office, you find that the school has burnt. Then you say, I don't know what happened. Unfair practices, where of course there are those principals and those managers that they have quite unfair practices, whether it is about favoritism, whether it's about misuse of funds, whatever it is. Remember, you are dealing with people who are bright. It's only that not everybody who can fit in your office, so they can tell when you are running it well and when you are not doing it right, and that one can cause indiscipline. Then we have already talked about the defective communication between school managers, staff, and the students, and therefore these are some of the ways. Remember, we are just highlighting, and then you are going to get a lot of materials, of course, in your e-learning portal. Thank you. That's the end of the session 1. We take a break and then we come in for session 2. Thank you.